Trading a player in the second year of essentially $250 million contract. It's the Washington Wizards and Bradley Beal. They are discussing the possibility of a trade here.
Michael Winger, who has been given the authority to go whatever direction he would like to.
The NBA offseason is officially on its way, and we have a little bit over a week until the NBA draft. And I know what you guys are gonna ask me. Yes, we're live streaming the NBA draft once again this year. We're gonna try to make a crazy push to 800,000 subscribers, man. I know it sounds insane. I know it's a crazy goal, but it's what we do each and every year, and I'm getting a lot of requests for it in my Discord and on my Instagram and on my Twitter, so we're gonna run it back. With that being said, we're getting some crazy information in regards to what is set to be a very, very wild off season. So before we get to the content, we're running back another huge giveaway, $1,000 between 5 subscribers that turn on our notifications on this channel. We're gonna announce the winner on the community tab, and now that we get all that out of the way, cue the intro. Check 1 2 1 2. What's going on, everybody? This is a storyline that has been as old as my career. Ever since I started making YouTube videos on the NBA back in 2019, Bradley Beal has always been the subject of trade rumors. And the fact that he went from being a 26-year-old in trade rumors to a player that's 30 in trade rumors is insane to me. But the thing that's interesting about Bradley Beal's situation is based upon how the Washington Wizards handle his situation, there's going to be a complete roster overhaul. I know this isn't necessarily the most obvious thing, but the Washington Wizards were actually trying to be competitive with the roster they put out there. I know you wouldn't think of that, but between Kyle Kuzma, Kristaps Porzingis, and Bradley Beal, with players like Denny Avdia and I guess for a period of time Rui Hachimura before the Wizards traded him after one of his best games of the season, the Wizards were doing their absolute best to be a contender. And unfortunately, that didn't really work out for them. They finished with a 35-47 record, and I feel like this has been a classic case of the Wizards just really clinging on to their best player of the past decade for dear life. I mean, yeah, you could say either Bradley Beal or John Wall, but you get what I'm saying. Because in 2020, Bradley Beal played absolutely out of his mind. I mean, from the 2019 to 2020 season, he averaged 30 points per game off of 46% shooting from the field, 35% from three. And the timing of this was remarkable because Bradley Beal was clearly trending upward because this directly coincided with when Bradley Beal's contract was set to expire. Now bear in mind, this is his very first unrestricted free agency. Prior to this, he had no choice but to stay with the Washington Wizards. Now, he had a choice to make, and this is why we've been talking about Bradley Beal since 2020. During this time, there was a lot of speculation about Bradley Beal's future. Number one suitor turned out to be the Miami Heat. There was rumors about the Los Angeles Lakers. Ultimately, Bradley Beal chose the money. Stayed on the Washington Wizards on a 2-year, $70 million contract, under the delusion that maybe they could be competitive. I never really believed in that. I always believed that he was financially incentivized to stay with this team, and the duration that he chose to sign was very interesting to say the least, because Bradley Beal had full control of his career at this point. He wasn't signing very long contracts to remain with the team. He signed a tiny contract to remain with the team. Things weren't necessarily the same for Bradley Beal. Following some very depressing seasons, including the famous sad Brad meme and some interviews that quite literally made Bradley Beal look depressed.
You know, with the Ernie last few days as well. So it's been a rocky year for sure. Disappointing year in terms of winning and everything like that. Emotional, but you know, for the most part, it's still a lot of growth towards the end of the year that we can build off of.
Bradley Beal crashed down to earth, going from 31 points per game off of 49% shooting and 35% from three to 30% from three, 23 points per game, and 45% from the field. Now, this is where things get really interesting. The 2021 to 2022 season concludes, and once again, Bradley Beal's contract is set to expire. At this point, he's clearly not the star he was the last time he had free agency. He's no longer longer averaging 30 points per game. And not to say that he's not a good player at all whatsoever, and yeah, he was dealing with some injury issues as well, but clearly his value wasn't nearly as high as it was the last time he was a free agent. But despite this, the Washington Wizards did something that really was head-scratching to say the least. They decided to sign Bradley Beal to a 5-year, $251 million supermax contract with a no-trade clause. Yeah, you want to win a championship, Brad? Yeah, go for it. I mean, and hear me out. How about instead you just stay with us and earn $50 million annually instead? And if we do decide to trade you, you could quite literally handpick the next team you want to go to. That was a stroke of genius. I gotta hand it to him. And they did do their best to build around Bradley Beal. I mean, first trading John Wall for Russell Westbrook. Then after a year of Russell Westbrook, they traded Russell Westbrook to the Lakers for the 17th overall pick in the NBA draft, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, and Kyle Kuzma. I can't believe we gave up a first-round pick to do this, by the way. And Montrezl Harrell. They decided to sign Spencer Dinwiddie, and when the Spencer Dinwiddie experiment didn't work out in Washington, which, by the way, did result in some very comical feuds, they decided to trade him to the Dallas Mavericks and bring in Kristaps Porzingis. So the Wizards were supposed to be competitive with this big three of Kristaps Porzingis, Kyle Kuzma, and Bradley Beal. When these three were playing together, they were able to come out with a 16-19 record and outscored their opponents by an average of 3.3 points per 100 possessions. They tried their best, and ultimately it didn't work out. So now the Washington Wizards are starting to come to terms with reality. It's not worth holding on to Bradley Beal anymore at this point. The contract is more of a nuisance than being worth it at this point. There's young talent on the Washington Wizards that they could hopefully develop. Hell, they could have been in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes if they had a fire sale last year. But now things are looking interesting. Kristaps Porzingis has a player option for $36 million that he could potentially decline and hit free agency. Kyle Kuzma has already been very vocal about hitting free agency. That being said, with no roadmap in order to build a contender around Bradley Beal, not like the Wizards were very successful to begin with, they have no choice. According to Shams Charania, the Washington Wizards and Bradley Beal will work together to find a trade for the three-time All-Star if the team elects to reset the roster in the near future, league sources tell him and Josh B. Robbins. The verbiage in this is so funny.
If the team elects to reset the roster in the near future.
No, buddy, you don't really have a choice at this point. Kuzma could walk away for nothing. Porzingis could opt out, but if you ask me, I think he's going to opt in. I don't think he's going to get $36 million a year from any other team, if I'm being honest. So let's go more in depth on this, because there's a beautiful Athletic article in regards to what teams could be interested in Bradley Beal and why they would do this. According to Shams, it is unclear whether the Wizards will ultimately decide upon a rebuild or if they find an acceptable trade. The sources said both sides are working amicably to find the path forward. With the 2023 NBA draft looming on June 22nd, the sources, who were granted anonymity because they were not authorized to discuss the matter, said the Miami Heat and Milwaukee Bucks are expected to be prominent suitors for Beal if he reaches the market. The Miami Heat are probably my favorite contender to potentially execute a trade for Bradley Beal, and even Kristaps Porzingis. The current trending trade that's going on in Twitter, and bear in mind, it's just Twitter, it's not something that I believe in my heart of hearts can happen. There's a trade that includes Victor Oladipo, Kyle Lowry, Duncan Robinson, and Tyler Hero, and obviously some draft picks for Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis. Now, it's important to note, Bradley Beal has to approve of any team that decides to trade for him. They have to work with Beal to complete a trade because the 5-year, $251 million maximum salary contract that the team and Beal finalized last July includes a no-trade clause allowing Beal to block any trade. The contract also includes a 15% trade bonus. Bro, it's like Bradley Beal knew. He's like, yeah, I'm just gonna sign this crazy freaking contract and then I'll get traded eventually. Brilliant move, because your home team could pay you significantly more than any team that you get traded to. Trading Beal would allow the Wizards' new executives to retool the team they inherited and potentially add some draft capital. Beal, whom the Wizards drafted third in 2012 out of the University of Florida, has never advanced past the second round of the playoffs in his 11-year pro career. He's going to turn 30 in about 2 weeks, average 23.2 points per game on a career-high 50.6 shooting from the field during the 2022 to 2023 season, but a variety of injuries and a stint in the NBA's health and safety protocols limited him to 50 games. So we mentioned the Heat and the Bucks. What about the Philadelphia 76ers? Well, there's some conflicting reports on that, because according to FanDuel TV, well, listen to this.
And I know Joel Embiid and Brad Beal are friends, and they both trained with Drew Hanklin in the summer. shoot the ball, and he's slightly younger than James Harden. So I definitely think there is something here. I know they have a personal relationship. I know back there he doesn't want to just sit there and rot on that team like he has been. It's going to be a collective effort to replace James Harden, but yeah, I think Brad Beal would be a perfect fit.
But at the same time, we're hearing other whispers that the 76ers are not interested in Bradley Beal because they believe that Tyrese Maxey has all-star potential. Now, even crazier is Brian Windhorst suggests that Bradley Beal's return isn't going to be as crazy as you think because he's signed to a ridiculous contract. Despite his status as a three-time All-Star, Wizards guard Bradley Beal doesn't reportedly hold a ton of value on the trade market. This is what Windy had to say.
I think people are going to be very surprised at the price. Potentially low it's going to be because his contract is not attractive. What it would mean to have a $50 million player on your team that may not be, a first or second all-NBA type player.
This makes a lot of sense. Who the hell wants to pay a player that is clearly not performing as well as he has been? Years ago, the amount that Bradley Beal is being paid, he's getting paid $50 million a year annually. And of course, I know that is an average, but Bradley Beal's average salary, which is set to get higher and higher, by the way, is more than the amount that Steph Curry, LeBron James, and Kevin Durant made this year. I mean, Bradley Beal's contract is crazier than what Damian Lillard has, what Giannis Antetokounmpo, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, Klay Thompson, and Kyrie Irving had. He's getting paid more than Luka Doncic and Trae Young. He's one of the highest paid players in the NBA. So why on earth would any team want to pay a player who's not nearly as good as he once was that amount of money? It's crazy because starting to realize the Washington Wizards may have fumbled the bag here. They should have traded Bradley Beal when he was in his prime, but they held on to him for dear life because for some reason they wanted to stay in NBA purgatory. The one thing that I think could happen is Bradley Beal could get traded and Kristaps Porzingis could stay. According to Keith Smith, something that is picking up more and more buzz is Kristaps Porzingis opting in for $36 million with Washington next season. Under the old front office, the assumption was that Porzingis would opt out and re-sign on a long-term deal with the Wizards. He may take the money now and hit free agency in 2024. No matter what happens with Porzingis and Kyle Kuzma, who will definitely opt out, the Wizards seem primed for a full rebuild. The team is expected to also consider Bradley Beal trade. That will necessitate working with Beal as he holds the NBA's only negotiated no trade clause. We're going to give Keith the props he deserves because he tweeted this out way before Adrian Wojnarowski or Shams Charania did. We're going to keep you guys posted on any new information that comes out in regards to this. Let me know what you think would be a fair return for Bradley Beal and how you feel about the way the Washington Wizards handle this. Aside from that, I'm your boy Mike, and I'm dropping our mic until our next upload.